How can we bring back the golden age of edu-Twitter? What happens when we step out of the classroom and into edtech? How should schools and districts think about AI tools for teachers right now? Welcome back to another episode of the Teachers on Fire podcast, airing live on YouTube most Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Pacific and 11 a.m. Eastern. My name is Tim Cavey, and my mission here is to warm your heart, spark your thinking, and ignite your professional practice. Today's Teacher on Fire is Scott Nunes. Scott is an international keynote speaker and award-winning education technology strategist. He leverages his network of AI researchers, Fortune 500 tech leaders, and workforce development partners to share insights in the convergence of education, industry, and emerging technologies. You can connect with Scott on LinkedIn, on X at Mr. Nunes Teach, on Instagram at I am Mr. EdTech, and at scottnunes.com. Scott, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Are you ready to light it up?
I am, Tim. So excited to be here. Really pumped to be back after all these years.
It's amazing, and I love how we can do this. We've never met in person, but I feel like I know you fairly well. We've had a lot of communication over the years. And I wanted to start at sort of a common meeting place for the two of us, and that is edu-Twitter. So I jumped in a serious way into edu-Twitter or education Twitter back in, I would say, 2017, 2018. I'd have to go back and look it up for sure. And I just think of it as such a magical space, and I know you do too. I think you maybe came in a little bit later, but just talk for a moment. Let's just reminisce, my friend, about the golden age of edu-Twitter. What was that experience like?
There was nothing like it. Looking back, it was amazing. I love being a part of it. As you recall, yeah, I came in a little later, really about 2018. I think we connected early 2019, if I recall. And it was a great place to share, to find answers, and more than anything, to be uplifted and encouraged to be the best version of yourself and to really go from content consumer to content creator.
I remember, Scott, hopping in there in edu-Twitter, and first of all, your feed was just, I mean, as long as you're following the right people, as long as you're following teachers and educators, which is something I've always preached, be selective with your feed. But man, you could put something out and you would be guaranteed a response, like absolutely guaranteed a response. And so you're never sort of screaming into the void. And you in particular, my friend, really understood the platform, I feel like, because there were stretches there where you would put out questions every day and you'd get these enormous feeds that follow just incredible responses. And I really miss that. Like, there's something really warm and nostalgic in my heart when I think back to that time of where we had our little posse of educators together. And I had to ask, I want to ask you this. Is there any platform that you think reproduces that today? Or is there any way to bring that back?
I think there's always a way to bring it
Mhm.
back, especially with the new spin. I think it needs to maybe have some of those communal aspects brought back. That doesn't need to change.
Right.
Just being in it to win it together and looking to not only survive but thrive during these wild, ever changing times. But there's no platform right now that does it. You know,
Mm.
I've tried them all, tried newer ones. I know people were big on Blue Sky for a while, saying, "Oh, this is going to be it," and that was not my experience whatsoever. I've shifted a little more to LinkedIn and Instagram, but not everybody's there, and the algorithm is so different on Instagram. It doesn't favor, at least in my opinion, these
Right.
very broad conversations, and it's not displayed in such a way. I wish we could still do that on Twitter because I think that's the most teacher friendly platform, politics and everything aside from the platform and how the algorithm there's changed. Like my question of the day, if you ask questions on Twitter, for example, it's just not going to be seen. Whereas before, um, it boosted the rankings of whatever you were posting, having these conversations and having people jump in. Uh, if there's some kind of developer out there listening, hey, you do that. And you definitely have at least a teacher and education community.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we know that all of social media has sort of followed the way of TikTok and oriented the feed much more according to what is trending, what's buzzing, what has a lot of juice. And we're calling it, some like Gary Vee now are calling it interest media instead of social media. So we know that it's not that tight community, and we'll probably never see it again, sadly. But yeah, those were the days. To those younger teachers who are just entering the profession, I feel like I'm dating myself now, but it was special. It was special, and it really, I'll say it really won me over to social media in terms of building that professional, that virtual learning community with other educators like yourself. Well, Scott, I feel like your professional journey, your career journey is going to be of great interest to my viewers and listeners. So I'd love you to walk us back, just in brief, the sequential steps that you've taken. Looking at your LinkedIn profile, I think you entered the profession around 2016. You can correct me in a moment if that is wrong, but walk us through the steps that you've taken right from student teacher to where you find yourself today.
Yeah, so it started a little bit before, maybe not in the formal public sense, but I did some work for a parochial school.
Okay.
Ooh, um, kind of be guessing years before, maybe 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. Start just doing the teacher induction program around that time, and then was student teaching in 2015 and got hired on full time in 2016. So you're not that far off, but I feel like it does add a little bit to that journey. I got to try and test some things, really get a sense of the age group I wanted to work with. I was a little scared of middle school. Definitely did not want to do elementary school. Kudos to all the primary teachers out there. uh, they're the true warriors in my book. And then I just played to my strengths with technology. I'm a former graphic designer before then. I've always loved technology ever since I was a kid, and always taught myself programs and how to code and different things like that. And so I brought that love of tech and genuine curiosity towards tech to my district and moved up the ranks, was an ed tech coach, helped build a virtual school during the pandemic. And then this opening as a founding member of the education team at Canva opened up, like, hey, this is it. And also touching on our professional learning network, our friends that we had in our Voxer chats. You introduced me to a guy called Eric Geis, and he had me on his podcast, and I was a big Adobe guy in 2019. And after that podcast, he privately challenged me to really explore Canva, and I did. And I fell in love. So it's amazing how those little conversations we had, or seemingly little, could lead to something so big. And after really helping grow that vertical, I decided, you know what? I'm going to try this on my own. I'm seeing some big gaps in education that I can help fill. It's an uncertain time, there's lots of challenges. And I do that for my clients, but I could go deeper and I can go beyond just one tool to achieve the results they're looking for. So essentially saving them time, money, and boosting engagement.
Well, I want to come back to that and talk more about your value proposition and what you offer your clients here in a few minutes. But first of all, I want to connect what we were talking about in terms of the golden age of EduTwitter and these steps that you've taken in your professional journey. This is kind of a softball for you, but how would you say your professional learning network has impacted your professional mobility, excuse me, and given you options in the workplace?
It has been the absolute game changer. When
Mm.
I was an entrepreneur back in the day, I taught myself how to code when I was 12, had my own graphic design business when I was 14, then freelanced and had some bigger gigs for a while there before getting into education. I failed, and I failed not forward like I do now. If I make a mistake, I'm always keen to find a way to upskill, take that experience and take it to the bank and turn a weakness into a skill, etc. But back then, not so much. And so the professional learning network really provides windows and doors of opportunity while sort of testing my ideas before they go to market, if you will. I can go to colleagues like yourself and say, hey, I'm thinking about relaunching the podcast. What do you think about this take? How's it going to land? And, you know, what do I need to do? Like, I haven't been in StreamYard for a while. I didn't know they had virtual backgrounds. Uh, and so just kind of testing those things with people you know and trust makes a big difference. You need to build your network before you need it. So when you need it, your network's already there.
You talked about that connection with Canva provided to you by Eric Geis. I mean, that's one practical example. And then I also think when you go to apply to a company like Canva, it's got to help that you've got well over 10,000 followers on these different platforms and you have some social credit. Like you've done some work. And it's not to say, it's not to sort of overvalue followers and vanity metrics like that. But I think what it says is this is a person who has provided value and people have resonated with his message in the past. And so there's something that companies can look at now in 2025 and say, yeah, this person is going to add something to our team. How do you compare? I have to ask this, Scott, for the teachers who are, you know, they're in their classroom, they're loving what they're doing, but they're also looking on the other side of the fence. How do you compare the corporate life to the classroom? I'm sure you've been asked this many times.
It is very different.
Yeah.
Both
Understatement.
are hard. Yeah, both
Yeah.
are hard. And I thought teaching would be way harder. It's
Mm.
not. Working in the
Mm.
corporate sphere is 3 to 10 times harder.
Wow.
It's very challenging, but like education, it's very rewarding. And so if you're considering it, the base you absolutely need to have is, why are you looking for something different? Because if it's some kind of issue, maybe a district issue, sometimes there isn't a good pairing with coworkers or leadership, or maybe just an on-site culture or district culture, whatever it is. Or maybe you just need something new. Maybe teaching isn't for you. And like me, you love technology, or you want to have a broader impact. You need to really self-assess and know thyself and know the reasons. And if there's anything negative in there, you need to sort of work that out, because it won't necessarily fix itself just by changing a job, just like going from one district to another, classroom to another classroom will solve the problem. Those challenges sort of find a way of following you, those inner defects and things we need to work on. So work on those things first and come over for the right reasons. I would say, especially from education, the thing that has been my North Star is growing impact and influence. So being the change I wish to see and just doubling and tripling down on that. So I'm still in it to win it for educators, for students, trying to make a difference. And now I've just done it on a global scale and just going deeper in that journey. So it's so hard. You have to completely start over again and be willing to learn. Kind of like before you're tenured, at least here in the States or specifically California, where I got my first credential. Uh, the goal was, hey, just survive, get tenured. I think there's a lot of that applies to the corporate field. Learn the culture, be likable, build your network out, be helpful, right? Do your job, but then add a little bit more, like equating it to a landscaper. Don't just mow the yard, blow everything away, and then take off. You know, look at the shrubs, look at the weeds in the flower bed, clean up the driveway a little bit more and the walkway a little bit. And those things, don't say, hey, I did all this, I did all that. People will just notice, and that'll make a world of difference. And find yourself a good mentor. You need a good mentor in the space.
A lot of great wisdom there, Scott. Thank you for that. I always think we need fat workers, faithful, available teacher. We got to be fat.
Yeah.
And those qualities are going to work in any environment. So I like what you said. I mean, there's so much wisdom again in just saying, hey, jumping into another space is not going to magically solve all of your problems. You're still going to be working with people. You're still going to have a boss. You're still going to have directives and deadlines, and a lot of those same things apply, even though it is a very different space. Maybe you don't hear Mr. Nunes 200 times in a day, but I like that comparison, and I think there's a lot of great guidance there in what you just said. Well, thank you for joining us, educators. If you're finding value here, go ahead and like the video on whatever platform you are watching on or listening on today. Scott, let's come back to your latest business. And I saw the acronym GTM, which from my lengthy Google research, it leads me to think go to market, but I might be off track there. So tell us about your value proposition right now. How are you supporting education systems today?
Yeah, so it's the stool approach. So rather than go niche, which is the conventional wisdom, kind of just done what I'm passionate about and providing value wherever I can. So, the one I'll quickly gloss over on the corporate sphere, you mentioned go to market. So, I help newer tech companies and companies in general with their go to market plan. So, how are they going to influence customer led growth or community led growth? Building out those communities, exactly what I tried to do at Canva by going to conferences, making people feel welcome, sharing out best practices, and really distilling down just simple things that have grand impact. So what things have emergent value where if you're taking a risk, the risk is low if you fail and you can kind of fail forward like I hinted at earlier. But if you succeed, that's where you're going to 3 to 10x your goal and your ROI, right? What you're putting in versus what you're getting out. So really helping companies do that. And then similarly for districts, really helping them with their app stack evaluation. This is probably the biggest reason for my shift. Uh, just working with all these different districts. No two districts are alike in the US or Canada. That was my territory. And I saw a lot of good in all these districts and a lot of opportunity and so much, for lack of a better word, bloat. So spending money
Right.
on things that doesn't necessarily didn't need to happen. I get different tools work for different teachers, but right now where money's so tight, work hours are tight, teachers are overworked, there isn't enough time for PD. There are these complex challenges, but the solution is quite simple. We just really have to consolidate those tools. So if you have a Nearpod and a Pear Deck,
Right.
just pick one
Yeah.
and go
Yeah.
with it and invest your PD in there. It seems simple enough. Um, But when you have the human aspect, there's attachments, and I get they're not exactly the same, or a Canva and an Adobe, but go where the easiest lift is and where you can support that and where it aligns with your district's company or company's principles and goals. Um, and then the third leg of the stool is really just doing what I've done all along. It's coaching and helping people become a better version of themselves. And so that's something I do on the side as well. Uh, Helping teachers fight burnout. I think that's the number one place to start. How to get your life back, how to use tools like AI effectively. Don't replace the greatness you have as an educator and the reasons you got into education with the AI, but do simple things like just do your rubrics and some of your lesson plans, feed it all those great things that you know, but don't spend 2 hours doing that lesson plan. Have it do it in 2 minutes once you have your prompt in there, and you're going to get a lot of time back. Or those emotional emails like, oh, maybe this is a
Right.
sensitive topic. Get some insights, and you are the arbiter of truth in your classroom. You know if it's going to fit or not. Um, and that's huge. I wish I had that when I was in the classroom. It would really, really help out.
Yeah. No kidding. A lot of cool things that you're doing there. A lot of great. And I noticed you didn't use the word consulting, or maybe I missed it. But is that a word that also applies? Is that fair to use, or are you purposely avoiding that?
I would say advising and
Sure.
consulting. The difference being advising, it's more top level. You're letting folks know what to do and how to execute an item.
Mm,
Whereas consulting, you're also building and doing the work. So I do
mm.
both, but leaning more towards advising. I feel a lot of folks that come to me know what they're doing. They just need some advice and need a different perspective. And
All
that's
right.
where I can really add value. And then if necessary, I'm all good
Yeah.
with building systems, especially 0 to 1. I guess that's my biggest takeaway. Uh, and going back to that other question, if anyone else is like, hey, I can do what this Scott guy is doing, yeah, you could do it. And you could probably do it better than me. One of the keys is you need to be really good at creating standards of procedures or use an acronym SOPs. You need to know KPIs, key performance indicators, all these terms. Like business loves their acronyms just like education does. So look up those acronyms, believe in yourself, try some things, take some risks, and have that contingency plan if you realize, hey, I got into this, I left everything, this isn't for me. You can either jump back into the classroom or jump to a different role.
You mentioned the review that you offer schools and districts on their app stack, and that's really timely actually because my school just published our latest, or didn't, I shouldn't say published, released, formalized our app stack for this year. And if you're a little bit lost in that conversation, every year schools and districts have to sort of reevaluate, okay, what are the apps and tools that we're going to subscribe to, because everything is moving towards subscription base. And so the long and short of it is, Scott, that I really wish I had that blog post written and published by now because I could walk you through it and have you critique it live on the air. That'd be fun. But but that's cool. So a lot of great services that you are offering schools, districts, educators. You're sort of catering to all parts of the all constituencies. It sounds like. What's your advice? Now you're going to be biased. You bring your perspectives, of course. But what's your advice as a former teacher and a technology coach, instructional coach? What's your advice to schools and districts who are open to AI tools? Maybe they're dipping their toes in the water, but they also, and this is really important to a lot of schools and districts, they want to remain cautious and faithful to the fundamentals of learning. And by that I mean we don't want to replace steps of learning that our students should be walking through. I think that's a big fear, a big concern that is out there right now. So how do you see AI tools in the hands of teachers? You spoke to that a little bit, but also in the hands of students in terms of supplementing but not replacing their learning.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot there. It's really important. I'll
Yeah.
start on the teacher and admin side. I think the approach to students is different and something I'll get out ahead on. My
Sure.
perspective is actually a little different than most, I think, when it comes to AI. I would say a lot of folks, at least on our side, being out there sharing content, seem to be more optimistic about AI. And I'm not pessimistic about AI, but extremely cautious. And in terms of what you put in, how you use it, it's a great tool, but you don't want it doing your thinking for you. So you
Hmm.
have to be very intentional. So where district needs to start, if you don't have an AI policy yet, work to develop one before you start getting the software. I know you may be using it already, but kind of slow down that use and really start having different conversations. Pit different AI tools against each other. Ask for sandboxes of the tools. If it's a paid product, if it's not a free product, incorporate some free products and do something as simple as in a committee meeting or a staff meeting, ask it questions based upon what you're talking about in that meeting and try the different things, right? Try Copilot, try Perplexity, try Gemini, etc., Chat GPT, all these things that you could potentially use and start looking at what other folks have. So I've seen some good things come from organizations like COSIN, or I was really inspired about this time last year, really looking at Ottawa Catholics perspective. So shout out to
Hmm.
all the Canadians in the north there. I think they really did some things really well, and it's a fair sized district. I could be wrong, but I want to say about 50,000 staff and students, roughly. Again, I could be wrong, could be a little larger, smaller, but I don't think I'm too far off there. And I think that's a good primer for folks. Those two resources to look at COSIN, Ottawa Catholic, and their policies if you don't have anything. And even if you're in the later stages or you already have a policy, look and see what's different, see what you can maybe borrow or see where there's alignment and go from there. And really, these tools, they should be safe. They should have controls to turn off things like, oh, you're feeding their LLMs or the language learning models, keeping that data private. Explore things, especially if you have the budget to maybe do something creative like a pocket LLM, sort of doing your own GPTs, doing your own AI. I think that's where it's going. I would start looking into that now. I've heard some really cool use cases. So just using your own data, your own principles, your own systems and metrics to really govern how AI is going to be used and the sort of results it spits out. And then on the student side, being just very cautious, having conversations about ethics and ways to use it. Uh, and I think the safeguards built into things like Chat GPT and Canva in particular, I'll speak to what I know. Some of that stuff is 13 on up. I think keeping it there for most of the stuff is good for right now until you're able to get more controls. That's where I differ from some of my contemporaries in the space. And then for some of the real basic stuff, again, Canva, because I know it, you can use the AI, like I'm blanking on the name of the tool because they've changed it, but some of their basic AI things you can use for any age. So some of the image and video gen things.
Absolutely. Yes. I see my fifth and sixth grade. I don't see them. I encourage them. I show them how to use some of those AI image generating tools in Canva. They can be pretty handy. Well, thank you for that, Scott. I know it's a huge question, but I think you answered it really well. And I like that you started with a thoughtful, clear AI policy because the longer I stay in education, the more I realize that there is so much safety in having good, sound policies to
Yes.
return to that guide us through these decisions. So you offered a lot of good tips in terms of how to go about building that. Yeah, it's an interesting time. I wanted to say too that you talked about the age limitation around some of the AI tools, and I completely agree. And thankfully, there are some safeguards. I know, for example, Gemini offers schools and districts the opportunity to not have any of their input enter their LLM. Something I noticed recently, just in the last few weeks, is that now when you just Google something, anything, when you Google it, there's a button on the top left that offers you AI mode. And so students with one click are into Gemini. And so that it's just interesting, right? The way these companies are
Yeah.
evolving, and it's becoming a little more slippery in terms of where, okay, am I using an AI tool now? You know, even our Google search results themselves have become Gemini products. But at any rate, here we are in 2025. We're making the best of it. We're making thoughtful decisions, I hope, in most cases. Scott, I had to ask you this, and I'm thinking back to your TNT EdTech podcast, and you remain, I think, a very well-respected voice in the EdTech space in general, and that's part of your work today. So again, you're going to have a particular perspective on this, but I'm thinking about the ISTE convention. I'm thinking about some of these gatherings, these conferences where there is just an explosion of startup companies out there, and sometimes it feels like there are 5 to 10 companies in any space. So I'm curious to hear how you would respond to this one. Is there any room left for more ed tech companies?
100%. In fact, we need
Yes.
more.
Okay.
So I know there's going to be winners and losers. I
Sure.
know a lot of new companies fail statistically, and
Mm-hmm.
this could change. It's old data, but an old statistic that I still hear thrown around is that 95% of new businesses fail within the first 5 years.
Hmm.
I believe that'll remain true. That being said, we need innovation and agile tools and platforms now more than ever.
Hmm.
And I'm going through a series with my own kiddos, my own family, and I think it's called Companies That Made America. It's on History Channel. So correct me if I'm wrong there on the name of it, somebody. Um, but it's great. Like I know for one food producer, there were like 200 snack companies after World
Sure.
War II. I think
Sure.
that level of infusion of ideation, creativity, and just thoughtfulness is great. And then let the market decide which tool and which tools are going to fit best. One of the things I've seen um, more and more that I dislike is not necessarily large companies, but large companies when they try to do it all and they lose their edtech soul, if you will, their really sense of purpose. Their intention is good, but you get lost. Whereas if you're a small newcomer, hey, you can really make it to the top quick if you're agile, you listen to your customer base, and you really have a good product that solves a problem. So, being mindful of that, there's plenty of room.
I really like that response and that idea because I am a believer in the capitalist system, the capitalist model, which is going to create some winners and losers. But as consumers and users, we are the winners, right? Because the companies with the best models, the most efficient product, and best pricing will rise to the top. And yeah, I completely agree with what you said. I could, your last comment there about knowing your niche, knowing your mission, and
Yeah,
staying true to it, and not trying to do absolutely everything out there. A couple of companies come to mind, but I won't throw any under the bus this morning.
right.
I've got a couple more questions for you, Scott. How are you doing for time? Are you doing okay?
I'm good.
Okay. A couple more questions. This one I wrote about recently, Scott. I've got my biased opinion as someone who believes in the system, but and believes in teachers. Obviously, that's my brand. But will AI ever replace teachers in the classroom? What's your view on that?
Yeah, so I'm hesitant to answer fully and truthfully, but I'll do so.
Hey, go for it. Go for it.
I think I'd be disingenuous. I'll start by sharing what I hear is the conventional wisdom that AI will not replace teachers. It will replace teachers that don't use AI,
Mm.
or teachers who use AI will be chosen more so over teachers that don't. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. But if your listeners check out a title, there's multiple articles on it, The White Collar Bloodbath, or look at Amazon and their firings and dig into that. I'll let you make your own assumptions and judgments on that, but dig a little deeper, get things from multiple sources. Um, AI is coming for teachers' jobs in different formats. My guess in the next 5, 10 years, max in some form, I think what it will look most like, and I could be wrong, right? I'm not some prophet over here. I don't have some all-seeing orb that where I can see the future, but where it looks like things are going is that yes, if you're not using AI in some shape or form, largely to do menial tasks and lower level tasks, and maybe to um, upskill. That's the other piece. You should be using AI to upskill, like if you want to become a better teacher, learn programming, or whatever it is, up your your EQ, your emotional quotient. AI can be really helpful for some of those things, but with all the hallucinations it can
Yes.
produce, the bias that's inherent, we do have to be really cautious. And so the winners will be those with relationships. So you'll need that, I think, more than the AI. You'll need to really double and triple down on the human aspect of things. AI will, race to the top, but at the end of the day, if people know you do good work, know the caliber of your character and the work you do, that will stand out more than ever, and that will be part of the future economy. But jumping back, what it'll look like is kind of more so teachers as facilitators and guides, and AI potentially being the arbiters of truth and sharing knowledge and systems and ways to learn. I saw this on an episode of Dr. Phil with Matt Miller. I imagine lots of listeners will be familiar with him, and they really showcased a school in Austin that was already doing that. And even though I personally disagree with that, I think it's too easy. I think parents, other folks in business, maybe folks in government will say, hey, this is an easier lift. We can save money. We can save time with this. And there are these good results rather than really looking at things long term. They're being a little myopic, maybe looking at a 5 and 10 year plan versus a 100-year plan, really thinking about future generations. And I think there's going to be a shift towards that, and the market will adjust. And that's where the relationships come in. So maintain those relationships, build out your PLN, use some AI. Don't go crazy. Definitely don't let it do your critical thinking for you. Don't lose that. But it can help inform some of your decisions.
That is fascinating stuff. Scott, we could spend a whole show just on this topic alone, and I'd love to break down some of the points that you raised, but thank you for that, and I'll leave it there for now. I want to start to wind up this conversation, Scott, and make a hard pivot into your personal health. For all of us, we're, I think, maybe a similar age. I'm probably older, but it's always a journey maintaining our physical health, and that's a challenge for educators. It's a challenge for professionals in the corporate spaces. Take us through what that has looked like for you in the last few years, and where you are today with that.
Yeah, you may remember a challenge you put out there years ago,
Oh yeah.
right around the start of COVID. There was a push-up challenge, and that was super cool. And I could barely do any push-ups. I had a hard time doing 10 push-ups in a go. And then quickly I got stronger, and some of that old strength came back, and I was doing like over 100 push-ups a day, and there was a goal of 10,000 push-ups. And if memory serves, I was one of the first to do that. And um, in hindsight, I should have slowed down. I went a little too fast and actually injured my shoulder, so it set me back. I didn't keep going after I got
Whoops.
past 11 or 12,000 push-ups there, but it was really neat. And so, um, having your physical health is so huge, especially as we get older. It's so important. It feeds our cognitive health as well. And something I'm doing now is running. I got kiddos in cross country, now varsity coach for soccer, and it helps give me some skin in the game. So, still in it to win it for students at different levels, still contributing in my local community. And I'm really proud of myself just because it's something I didn't think I could do. I'm doing 40 plus miles a month. I would love next
Wow.
month to be able to get to over 50. And then I have a goal of doing a 10K next year with my kiddos, but the elevation change is crazy. It's 2,900 feet going straight up over this 10K. So it's quite a challenge. So that's my crazy big goal to motivate me, and hoping by that time to get up to about 60 miles uh, a month, and just go from there. It's something I'm passionate about. And, I think when you do find your thing, when it comes to physical health. You just got to start somewhere and then find a community, even if it's a digital community. So for running, I have both a physical community, but then a digital community. And back to AI, I use AI for that. Like, hey, help me set my goals. What am I doing? How long do I need to run for? Here's my breathing. And it'll set up all kinds of cool workouts for me.
Scott, are you connected to Strava? Do you post your runs on Strava?
So I don't post them, but that's actually the app I use. I think it's great. And then I used Runna for a while, and Strava was good enough for me. I was able to just do what I need to do.
Sure. The reason I ask is you talk about the community piece, and if I could share a little bit too, I'm right there with you. I'm 47, and I'm running more now than I ever have. And for a lot of my life, I would run in spurts, like 2 to 3 weeks, and then it would die off, and I would hate it, and I would just go completely off the boat. But I'm finding the community piece on Strava is so helpful. So you mentioned the 10,000 push-up challenge a few years ago, which was a lot of fun and involved over 150 educators logging into the same Google Sheet, which is really hilarious. But what I set up this year, you may not know about this, but what I set up this year on Strava was an invitation for educators to join me in running 1,000 kilometers. And I know I'm showing my Canadian side there. That would be about 600 miles, but so I'm not going to make it, but I have hit a personal best. I'm right around 500K, and I'm still running. Yeah. And I'm going to try it again next year. So the invitation is out there, Scott. If you want to go a little more public with your runs, join the Educators Challenge for 2026. We'll get that launched right there on January 1st. And it's fun because you can see the leaderboard, and you can see it sort of lets you know when another educator passed you and you've got to do some catching up. And there have been some educators. There's a superintendent here in the Vancouver area who runs every day 5K, and he passed the 1,000 kilometers a long time ago. And there are a few others. There's a girl in my building who is a phenomenal runner. She just passed it this week. So I just find that positive encouragement of the community so powerful. So can I get a commitment from you publicly on the air, Scott, to join us for 2026?
Yeah, for 2026. It sounds like I may be late for 2025, but 2026, I'm in.
All right. Scott, this has been an absolute joy. You've been a friend and an ally in the edtech learning spaces for so long, and it's really good to connect and hear some of your thoughts on education today. As we wrap up today, as we close, how can we connect with you? And for people listening, watching, how can they follow your work?
Yeah, follow me on LinkedIn, just Scott Nunes. I'll be the first one. And then on Twitter and social media, largely Mr. Nunes Teach. And yeah, thanks for putting it up there. Instagram, I am Mr. EdTech. And then scottnunes.com. I will note it's down for maintenance over this weekend, but check back midday Monday about 12 p.m. PST, and you're going to be good. And hey, if you want to hire me too for your district, to talk is free. We can jump on a call and just discuss what your challenges are, what you're looking to do, and see if there's a match there.
Fantastic stuff, Scott. Thank you so much for sharing your time with the podcast on this Saturday morning. This conversation has been fun. It's been enlightening. It's gotten me thinking about AI and so many different pieces in the school district system, how we bring learning to our students, and how we help the game, how we support teachers and improve their sustainability too. Teachers on Fire, I'm your host, Tim Cavey, and I'm so grateful that you too decided to spend some of your day listening to this episode. I hope that in some way the content you heard today from Scott Nunes sparked your thinking and ignited your practice, and I'll meet you next week right here on the Teachers on Fire podcast. Take care, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.